Andrea, let's take a look at the business model canvas that we've talked about. And let's start with customer segments. That seems like an ideal place. Without customers, most businesses don't get very far. So let's take a look at the different ways to look at a customer segment. Simply put, it's the people that we hope will ultimately purchase our service offering.
That's
our
right.
Product offering.
And traditionally, there have been two ways we thought about it. It was, if we build it, they will buy it, and they being generic they. And also that when you started looking at segments of customers, that it was based on demographics. So people of a certain age or a certain zip code would probably have the same pattern. And anymore, it's probably unlikely that people in the same zip code would have the same purchasing behaviors. So the key for businesses and the takeaway from this is now to look at segments in terms of what's meaningful to us as a company. So for instance, if everybody has to get their taxes done by April 15th, you could say that everyone fits into one segment until you realize that some people are trying to do it with the back end of Quicken and other people don't need that interface, so that might be a way to segment.
They bring in a box full of receipts.
That's right, exactly. So there's the shoebox and there's the Quicken, and they might have different needs and they might have different preferences, and you might want to treat them differently if one needs a lot of customer support for the software and the other one just needs someone to organize a shoebox.
So originally, customer segments were mostly mass markets, right? We have a product offering and we're going to offer it to everybody. And that still works sometimes. iTunes, for example, it doesn't matter if you're 17 or 70, you're going to get your music the same way, although the product would probably be customized to my needs. I'm also thinking about banking. There, my offering to a 21-year-old student might be really different than when I offer a 70-year-old retiree.
Right. And the limitation that you have sometimes is that if you segment everybody just based on, say, income, that you might not realize that high-income individuals might still want some of the things that a lower-income segment would want. For instance, press 1 for checking balance. You know, they might not feel at all insulted if that was the segment that you put them in when they called you wanting a quick transaction. So sometimes an individual might even move from segment to segment depending on how they want to interact with, say, the bank.
And my guess is that's also somewhat driven by the value proposition that we're offering or the value proposition that they require.
Right. And so a value proposition, to go over the traditional view of it, is, of course, what it is from the customer's perspective we're giving them. And it might be that they have a very different idea of what we're giving to them than what we think. So, for example, Zappos is giving you peace of mind, happiness, speed, oh, and by the way, shoes. And we might think that we're just selling shoes. So if we think that shoes is our value proposition and we're Zappos, we're missing a lot of the picture as far as what the real value proposition, the richness can really be.
Excellent. And what's the connecting point? Would you say it would be the relationship we have with the customer or the channel, or a little bit of both?
So I think it's both. I mean, I think that the relationship that we have with the customer when we are, say, Zappos, for us to know that people value the fact that they can return things if they want to. And if we understand the value proposition and the segment that goes with, then the relationship we have can all be geared toward that. The problem is if we invest in something that the customer doesn't really value, so it's costing us a lot of money, and it's not serving them, that's a really good way to lose customers.
And the channels are an interesting tie-in too. I think about Amazon.com, who really, in my estimation, redefined the use of the channel as a strategic weapon, in that they were the first really big retailer online, so we were buying online. Number two, things usually arrive much faster than I thought they would, so I wasn't really losing as much time as I thought I was by going to the store. But I think what really gets interesting is the post-sale part of their channel. So here I was, and now I'm getting recommendations based on the purchases I've made, and lo and behold, the recommendations are accurate. They're actually recommending things that I would like to have or buy, or even present as gifts to others. So a really great way of using the channels to reinforce the value proposition between the customer and what I hope that they'll take away as value added.
I agree, and to me, the icing on the cake of the Amazon story is that the Amazon back end and infrastructure actually enabled a new channel, which is people who were trying to bring products to market reliably and warehousing them and getting the inventory down right, but weren't necessarily big enough to get that to happen. So the next piece of that channel that Amazon made possible was people who couldn't even really be part of the whole distribution model until Amazon opened up the back end, so people can offer, goods and services that they knew their customers wanted that Amazon didn't necessarily inventory.
which leads us to sort of the base of this side of our model canvas, which is the revenue stream. How do we get money or take in revenue from the work that we do or the value that we provided? And the most obvious, of course, is a transaction. I buy an item like we talked about with Amazon, but there are so many other ways of generating revenues. There are ways that we could lease or rent items that we have. There are subscription fees, usage fees, a number of different ways that we might generate revenue.
And a lot of ways using the old software model where you use for a fee for service, or now with cloud you rent something whereas you used to own it. And with things like Airbnb, where it used to be you had to have a fixed asset, and now you can actually have bartering at a lower place in the chain. So the revenue streams are actually, at least in this current economy, really interesting because so many players can play the different channel roles and open up the markets in very, very innovative ways.
Another way this is really getting redefined is the freemium model. So certain models where the base level of product or service offering is actually free.
Right.
And then the secondary levels would be paid for at a premium.
Well, and if you think about it, something like Google, the people that look things up on Google, it's all so supposedly free, and yet that doesn't mean that no revenue is being generated. So that's this multi-sided model where you've got a market where the people that benefit from part of what you offer are different from the people that are buying the AdWords and paying for the fact that your eyeballs are on their site.
Yeah. So this side of the business model canvas allows us to identify our customers, look at the type of relationship that we currently have or would like to have with them, look at the channels that we use to both communicate with them and deliver our goods and services to them, and all those tie back through the value proposition underlaid by the type of revenue stream we can anticipate from them.
Yes, and I think the real brilliance in this and what makes it so usable is when you start really checking on the match between the value proposition and the segment, because it might be that one size does not fit all, and that it's the insight that you get by realizing that one group values one aspect of what you have to offer, but not necessarily the other groups that you serve.